Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update video today. We'll go through some of the news that has caught my attention over the last couple of days or so. Well, I sit outside here in the garden today. Nice day, can't complain. A little bit chilly, but the sun trying to peek through the clouds, so that is a pro in my opinion. Now we'll get straight into the news, and for those people here in Spain that are interested in the best quality supermarkets, this article will be interesting for you. And as we can see here, a survey has identified Spain's best and worst supermarkets for buying fresh meat and fish. Where to buy the best fresh supermarket meat and fish? Spain's consumer organisation, the OCU, sheds light on these questions in a survey of 5,415 customers published in the latest issue of the magazine Compra Maestra. In the case of meat, although neighbourhood butcher shops have for years been the preferred place to buy fresh meat, the lack of time and busy schedules of many families are pushing more and more customers to opt for the supermarket. The survey results for the worst rated supermarkets for meat are Dia with 62 points out of 100 and Mercadona with 64 points. At the other end of the scale, among supermarkets in Malaga are Hypercore 86 points, El Corte Inglés 83 points, and Supercore with 80 points out of 100. So that's when it comes to meat. For fresh fish, the survey found that 84% of consumers use neighbourhood shops or markets. Among the 16% who use a supermarket, Hypercore scored 85 points out of 100, El Corte Inglés 84, and Supercore 81. The worst rated supermarkets were Aldi with 58 points out of 100, Covirán with 59, and Lidl with 60 points. So there we go, some of the better supermarkets when it comes to buying fresh meat and fresh fish in this country here. As we saw, the worst supermarkets there were Dia when it comes to buying meat. I don't know anybody who would buy meat in Dia. It's all packaged and doesn't have very good quality. And the other one there, surprisingly, Mercadona, given their market share here in Spain, around 25-26% of overall market share, but not rating highly when it comes to fresh meat. And anyone who's been to Mercadona will know that that is the case. Fresh meat, not very good. Packaged, they don't have a butcher service there. They've improved in recent times when it comes to fish, in my opinion, but they didn't make the top of the list there. El Corte Inglés out on top, of course, their supermarkets. Supercore, which also belongs to El Corte Inglés, and fresh fish, don't buy it at Aldi or Lidl either. And Covirán also copping a bad rap when it comes to fresh fish. According to OCU, the consumer organisation here in Spain, the consumer watchdog, if you like, Consumidores en Acción is their motto, and they put out surveys like this every now and again to keep people informed on where to shop. But an interesting point there was that the majority of people here in Spain, when it comes to fresh fish, don't buy it at supermarkets at all. They go to the local market where obviously the quality is a lot better. So keep that in mind if you are shopping for fresh meat and fresh fish here in Spain. All right, good. We'll go on to another piece of news. Let's see. When it comes to paying taxes here in Spain, unsurprising, this piece of news that I found on the Onda Cero website, I should say. And as we can see here, the tax burden in Spain is at an all-time high and exceeds the European average. During 2022, Spain witnessed a historic tax collection, but it will be even better in 2023 because the government's budgets foresee that the figures will be exceeded by almost 50 billion euros despite the economic uncertainty, an increase due to new taxes on companies, savings and investment. The tax burden in Spain, due to the government's laws, is 16% higher than the average for OECD countries. But what's more, if we look at individual economies, the tax effort we have to make is 53% above the average for OECD countries. The Institute of Economic Studies, IEE, has pointed out this Tuesday that the tax burden in Spain has reached historic highs in 2022, exceeding 42% of GDP and standing above the EU average 41.7% for 2021, the last year for which data are available. So there we go. As we saw in that article, the tax burden here in Spain is at an all-time high, and no surprises, obviously, for people living in this country that pay taxes like myself, and I'm sure many people that are watching this video here. And thanks to a person the other day that sent me an interesting article on taxes around the world, And it is true that the general tax system in Spain does not rank very highly. And as we can see here, the government has increased taxes in the latest state budgets in order to make up for that COVID loss period that a lot of governments went through. In fact, I think a lot of governments around the world are increasing taxes to make up for that lost revenue. But here in Spain, they have gone over the top, not only in my opinion, but in the opinion of many, many people. And unfortunately, with the current government that we have, I don't think the situation is going to get any better. Now the sun's starting to creep out from behind the clouds. I've got a nice warm cup of coffee, nice hot cup of coffee here. I'll just take a sip and get back into the news, trying to keep warm. And the final piece of news today relates to Spain's #1 fugitive, the man, the Waterloo King himself, Carles Puigdemont, the leader behind that failed referendum attempt here in Spain, in Catalonia, I should say, back in 2017, I believe it was. He's been on the run ever since then. He escaped the country, didn't go to jail like fellow independence politicians here in Spain that did a few years in jail at least, until they were recently released by the current government. But Mr. Puigdemont has escaped justice in this country, and apparently, even with a reduction in one of the charges against him when it comes to sedition, he said that he's still not willing to come back to this country. As we can see here, Puigdemont rules out returning to Spain and entrusts his fate to the European justice system. Carles Puigdemont has ruled out returning to Spain in view of the entry into force of the new penal code, which frees him from the main charge against him in Spain, the crime of sedition, which has been repealed by the agreements between Pedro Sanchez and ERC. Let no one doubt it. I will not return handcuffed or surrendered before a Spanish judge, no matter how lenient he or she may be. I will fight to return free, the former Catalan president said on his YouTube channel after a day full of rumours in Catalonia about his return. Puigdemont's fate depends on European justice, on what the Court of Justice of the EU decides at the end of January and what the General Court of the EU does next March. If they do not agree with him, he will not return to Spain. So fairly clear, those words there from failed Catalonian independence leader Carles Puigdemont, that he won't return to Spain handcuffed. He won't return to Spain to face a Spanish judge. He wants to get the European justice system to declare him a free man before he comes back to this country, because I think basically he does not trust the justice system in this country. The central government, as we know, has been bending over backwards in recent times to satisfy these Catalan independence politicians, free them from jail, get rid of some of the crimes when it comes to embezzlement and other things like that, so that they can become politicians again in the upcoming elections this year in Spain. That's the idea. And of course, Mr. Puigdemont will not be included in those lists, I imagine, unless that is the European justice system clears him and makes him a free man in the eyes of European justice. So interesting, and we'll keep an eye on Mr. Puigdemont's fate in coming weeks and months. Now we'll go into some of the comments that were left on videos recently. Some interesting chat. Let's have a look at the first one here from Ellen. We have seen you walk for many hours in your area with Mia. I do not think we have ever spotted a bike during all that time. Yeah, Ellen, thanks for the comment. And a few other people have also pointed out in the comment section the fact that they have seen me walking around my local area here, driving around my local area, going past the bike lanes frequently, but never seeing anybody riding bikes on those bike lanes. I'm going to be honest, there were a few people the other day in the video that I recorded that were going down the hill in one of those bike lanes, but basically on a daily basis you can count the amount of people that use those bike lanes on one hand. And the reason is that the majority of people here, I would say 75, 80, maybe even 85% of everybody that is of working age in this town where I live here on the outskirts of Madrid don't work in this local area. They head off to another part of Madrid, whether it's the capital city, whether it's another city on the outskirts of Madrid, and of course they have to use either public transport to get to their destination, or they take their car, because you can't ride your bike there. Basically, we have internal bike lanes here, new bike lanes. We've had bike lanes for a long time, but they weren't used very often either. I used them a few times with my son when we went for a ride with our bikes in the past, and I'm looking forward to trying these new bike lanes out. And I'm sure that at weekends people use the bike lanes, but during the week people do not. and it could have something to do with the weather that we have currently here in Madrid. Quite cold, been a little bit wet recently also, and many people, or some people I should say, not many, will be using those bike lanes when the weather improves, myself included. But you're right, Ellen, and to other people that have pointed that out, you don't see many people using the bike lanes during the week at least. Another comment here from Sandra. Sandra here from Alberta, Canada. What you were saying about the government in Spain is exactly what's happening here. Lies you can't criticize or you're in trouble. It's getting bad, so polarized. Yes, Sandra, thanks for the comment, and obviously in reply to a rant that I gave on this channel the other day, in which I criticized the Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, mainly about a documentary that he's going to release soon about his life in politics. And my biggest criticism of that documentary is that it's happening in an election year at a time when apparently Mr. Sanchez is not very popular amongst the general population in this country. And he's had a history of not telling the truth in the past, and it continues to grow and grow and grow. In fact, his nose resembles Pinocchio's more and more as the days go by. And when it comes to polarization, which is something that you mentioned in your comment happening in Canada, I think it's happening in a lot of countries around the world. Obviously Canada, as you say, I don't know much about Canadian politics, so I'll have to take your word for it. The United States, we've seen polarization in recent times. Brazil, here in Spain, the situation is terrible. Australian politics is also a little bit polarized at the moment, so I think it's just a general trend that we have in Western democracies currently. And you're right, you have to be careful criticizing some sides of politics nowadays. We all know what side of politics that I'm talking about, because you get called something nasty and nobody wants to get called those names for having a different opinion. Another comment here from Mariano76. I happen to find the Podemos PSOE coalition to be the best government Spain has had ever. Yeah, Mariano, thanks for the comment, and obviously another reply related to my rant the other day. And you are entitled to your opinion the same way that I am entitled to my opinion. In your opinion, the current government is the best government that Spain has ever had. And in my opinion, as I said the other day, it's the worst government that I have seen since I have been living here. But hey, that's my opinion. That's your opinion there. And we are entitled to have opposing views in a democracy. We can sit down, have a chat, maybe have a coffee, have a beer, as long as we don't come to fisticuffs, as long as we respect each other's opinion, because that's what it's all about, respecting other people's opinions. And as I said, I can have my view, you can have yours, and we can just leave it at that. Another comment here from Martin. Yeah, I live off-grid in high-tech Project Tau in Valencia region, Oliva. Check out Project Tau episode 3 video and visit one day to enjoy good weather. Yeah, Martin, thanks for the comment. And I went onto your YouTube channel and checked out the video that you refer to here, the Tau episode 3 video, and saw what you've got going down there in the Valencian community. Lots of solar panels on your roof. And I have a question. How much power do you generate with so many solar panels on that roof? The neighbors here, for example, maybe have 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 solar panels, but what I saw on your roof took it to a whole new level. And I'd be interested to know what type of energy consumption or what type of energy you generate with all of those solar panels. And when it comes to the weather down there in Oliva, I imagine that it is a fantastic part of the country for good winter weather. Not sure about the summer weather. It might be a bit too hot and humid for me there, but winter weather down in the Valencia region, the Alicante region, I'm sure is an absolute treat. And I might take you up on your offer one day to visit that part of Spain, and if I do, I'll look you up. And a final comment here from Cobra Commander. Dia seems to have the best fresh baked bread out of the markets here in Madrid. I go there almost every day just to make jamon bocadillos at home. Yeah, Cobra Commander, a relevant comment considering what we saw at the beginning of today's video when it comes to fresh meat and fish. When it comes to bread, I tend to agree. Dia has decent bread. It's not expensive. You can get a decent loaf of bread. There's one in particular that I like. I think it's called Barra Pellegrini or something like that, which is tasty in a bocadillo with a bit of nice jamon and cheese, if you like, as well, and other bread qualities there. Decent when it comes to supermarket quality bread. I tend nowadays to buy bread in a specialist bakery. I'm willing to pay a little bit more for a good quality loaf of bread that will last 3, 4, sometimes 5 or even 6 days in winter at least. In summer, not so much because it dries out a lot quicker than it does in winter. But I prefer to pay around, I think it's €3.95 or €4 for a decent size loaf of bread, and I can cut it up into slices for my breakfast in the morning, for my son's sandwiches, and 2-3 days it normally lasts. Whereas these barras, the pan that you get from places like Dia, last about half a day in this household because my son absolutely loves a bocadillo de tortilla every day when he comes home from school. But yeah, you're right, Dia doesn't have bad bread, or at least when you compare it to other supermarket quality bread, it's not too bad. On that note, I'll wrap this video up. Thank you very much for watching. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Just below the video, you will find that comment section. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.